Howdy, friends. Laura Copley here, editor of The Banner. I am so happy that you have joined our magazine's podcast. The pilot season revolves around the decisions, people, and impact of Synod 2026. Just like our Banner commentary column, the views you hear may not necessarily reflect the views of the Banner or the CRC Church, and that's okay. Our goal is to explore. A big thanks to Pastor Derek and Sarah. They recorded all episodes in the hours directly following Synod, catching folks just before they headed home. These conversations are fresh, candid, and really interesting. But enough for me. Let's get to it.
Within the Christian Reformed Church, there's been a lot of deliberation and debate, and even some fracturing. Synods 2022, 2023, and 2024 were contentious. Sitting in the middle of all of this was a beloved institution, our institution, Calvin Theological Seminary. How has the seminary related to some of these conversations about theological integrity? Let's talk about that.
I am Sarah Zylstra, a writer for the Gospel Coalition and a member of New City Church in Kansas City, which is a Christian Reformed congregation. And I am here with Derek Buikema, who is the pastor of Orland Park Christian Reformed Church, and we are the hosts of the Banner podcast. In our first season here, we are analyzing Synod 2026, which is our annual gathering of delegates. And our hope is to show how God uses ordinary processes of church government to bless and build his church.
And we're here today with the president of Calvin Theological Seminary just after the conclusion of Synod 2026. And we're so thankful that you are here with us, Jul. Welcome.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Sarah. I look forward to this conversation. And it should be noted that at least I had one more night of sleep last night. Synod was yesterday when we taped
That's right. So. That's right. Yeah. So you're fresh. You're coming at this fresh.
I've had a long time to reflect about this. Yes,
That's
indeed.
Really good. So, Jul, I just want to tee things up by giving you a wide amount of latitude. How are you feeling about this confessional conversation within the denomination related to the seminary? We sit here right after Synod 2026, affirmed the work and appreciation for Calvin Theological Seminary. Where's the seminary right now?
Sure. It's a great question. And I think in some ways it's helpful to think of not only that we're 150 years old, but there's a way that we have always been serving the church in these conversations. And there's, once again, been conversations most recently about the confessional matters, but also especially human sexuality. When people ask me, and they have asked me before, it's like, where's the seminary stand on this? I sometimes, and I don't mean to smile at them, but I inwardly go, I want people to understand not only where Calvin Seminary is, but where it has been. Mm-hmm. And it's an agent of service to the church. So, for example, and again, probably taking us back a little bit, is the fact that I would say to people, well, do you remember a forum issue of 2015 before Synod of 2016 about human sexuality, and particularly articles by Jeff Buikema and John Cooper and Ari Later? And I also wrote an article about how the church needs to wrestle with this from a biblical and theological perspective, and from our, once again, Reformed rootedness. And that forum was identified as really a key point for people as they move forward, and it led to Synod 2016. And again, I'm going back over 10 years now to say, no, we're not going to go with a majority report that had I would say, a sociological analysis, how many provinces, how many states have moved in this direction of same-sex marriage, but actually picked up a minority report by one of the professors at that time of Calvin Seminary, John Rotman, and a student by the name of Jess Driesinga, who's going to be coming back to Calvin Seminary as a faculty member, who said there's a minority report of what pastoral advice or guidelines would be, including do not officiate at same-sex marriage. And then that's when the formation of the study committee begins, and that's where, once again, we see people like Jeff Buikema and Mary Vandenberg and Matt Tunig, all of those that your listeners might not know are Calvin Seminary faculty who were key members in writing that report that led us then to the Human Sexuality Study Committee report and the adoption in 2022. And then, as you said, the unfolding that's followed. And so I would say to you, again, maybe at the outset, Calvin Seminary has been in some ways the beginning of the most recent conversation, been key to the counsel. But I also understand that there is people who specifically sometimes confuse what Calvin University does or Calvin Seminary does, and for us to be clear to the church what it means that where we stand. So if I could pick up the story, and I know you might have questions, we then, after 2022, the question really was, is there a gravamen process related to our faculty? And since 1991, when there was a separation of the board of Calvin Seminary and Calvin, not then college, university, there was a book where those gravamen were laid. We didn't take the book with us. They left it. They left it at Calvin. And we have had no faculty members ask for a gravamen exception. And so we wanted to let Synod 2023 note that. We also wanted to note, and there's a statement that's in the agenda for Synod, for those of you who love to go look at things like that, on page 127, which reminds people of a statement of our confessional commitment by CTS faculty. But as in all things, and it's a relationship, and I think that's what you indicate now. How does that relationship show itself and grow stronger? And so questions were asked about, well, besides this statement, which is a corporate statement, what do individual faculty members do? And will they sign the covenant for office bearers, keeping that kind of same language? And we haven't. I forgot to bring the book down because it's a podcast. I can bring you the book that was actually shown at Synod. And then also a question at 2025 was, what about auxiliary teachers? And how do they show alignment with our perspective when they're teaching in that, say, once a class every year sort of thing? It happens. And then they asked also the Board of Trustees, the most recent overture. And I would just say to you, as I come to this kind of decades plus view of this, I think we are at a very strong point with the church saying, here, you can see, here, you can view even what the contract language looks like, and here is where the board's going to sign off. And as Derek knows from his role, I would love to see the same book that the faculty signed, that the Board of Trustees signed. But it's been a journey. I'll admit that.
Yeah.
What are you going to ask?
I was just going to say, so our podcast audience maybe didn't hear the story of the book. So I'm just wondering if you could, in a couple sentences, explain what you mean about the signing of the book.
Okay. So for years in the Christian Reformed Church, there's a way for people to say, and I'm going to specifically mean for Calvin at that point, which was Calvin College and Seminary under one board, that they might have a perspective related to, say, believers' baptism, infant baptism. And I'd like to note my understanding of that, even as I signed as indicating I want to be at Calvin and teach in accord with the confessions, but I want this kind of noted. So there's this book, and I've actually seen the book. It's rather old and dated, but that's where the faculty would sign that. And again, since 1991, there's not been a book for Calvin Seminary for signing, and they did not need to sign an exception for the gravamen because there was none offered. And the conversation was, if you're a seminary member, a faculty member at Calvin Seminary, you teach in accord with the confessions. That's the understanding. And if you have a concern about that, you probably need to talk to the president and probably think about that you're not going to be teaching in this context.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sorry if it wasn't short enough for that.
No, yeah, that's good.
And it was kind of cool to see that. It was cool to see that I am a board member of Calvin Theological Seminary, and it was cool to see that as a board member, and it was cool to see it as a delegate. And Jul brought it to pass around so people could take a look at it. It's a nice
to be clear, this wasn't
book.
But it doesn't have. It's not a whole bunch of Calvin faculty asking for gravamen.
No. Go ahead.
It's a nice leather-bound book with Calvin's face imprinted on the front. And then you open it up, and it's the covenant for office bearers in the Christian Reformed Church. And then it has the signature of first President Medenblik, and then every faculty member at Calvin Theological Seminary indicating their agreement with the covenant for office bearers. And the thing that Jul has stressed at this synod and throughout the time I've been a board member is like he just said, we haven't ever had a faculty member who's taken an exception to the confessions, who's taken a gravamen. We've had full confessional agreement from our faculty, and to be able to demonstrate that in a way that was public, I think that was well received, really, from the body at Synod.
I appreciate that. And again, I think it once again is people, especially who are not, say, close to the seminary in different ways, they've heard of this. They just want to see it. They want to understand it. And to your point and kind of your question, Derek's fine answer was, there is a book still at Calvin University that they have. There's a new book that we have for Calvin Seminary, recognizing the chapter of ministry that we're now in.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's great.
It is great. And if you bring that to the Board of Trustees, I'll look forward to signing it as
well, the board can decide how they want to sign it or when they want to sign it or what book to use. But what I meant by that about using the same book, because I want to once again testify that it's not a question of, well, the board did this and really is forcing faculty to do this or faculty protesting against something. It's the faculty and board being together at Calvin Theological Seminary, and for that being one symbol of that togetherness and that commitment.
Yeah. How has it been for you the last couple of years leading through all of this?
Well, I would have to say that whenever you get together with 180 some people from across the United States and Canada, some I know and some I don't know, that I feel like I'm always introducing or reintroducing who we are as Calvin Theological Seminary. And for example, great opportunities like when candidates are introduced to say, candidates of Christian Reformed Church, whether you went to Calvin initially or through the Ecclesiastical Program for Ministry Candidacy, which is called EPMC, that you've had at least some connection to Calvin Seminary, or introducing a new faculty like we had at this Synod 2026, Professor Chris Fantuzzo, and at 2025, which I think was the highlight of Synod 2025, was Jared Mickelson and Jessica Zylstra being interviewed. I mean, Jessica Zylstra for sure being interviewed at Redeemer, where she's teaching and the like. So what I mean by introductions, you use those opportunities to help people say, oh, that's what it is. Because I will say that there's, and I use this quite readily as an illustration because it happened to me a number of times. People would come up to me, and I preach regularly in different churches, and they come to me and say, oh, my granddaughter or grandson's going to go to Calvin, and they list about the fact that they're going to study sociology or something like that. And you nod your head and go, good school. It's right next door. I'll try to watch out for them if you need me or something like that. And so I know that they're thinking of Calvin University, not Calvin Theological Seminary. I get more concerned when they said, I just sent a check into Calvin. And I want to know, was it the right one at that point? So there's that introduction and reintroduction of who we are. And again, I think that's why Synod, and speaking not as anything other than a Christian Reformed member for basically my life, I'm glad we're not going to every other year synods, because that type of connection, communication, and just gathering together over meals has been key to, I think, the last few years of coming closer together.
Yeah.
I know there's been separation. I've seen it. I know of it in different ways. So have all of us. But even those moments, I would say we need to be stressed with how we communicate grace and trust together, grace and truth together as we look to trust.
As you go around to those different churches, what question do you get the most that is directed for you when they do know who you are? We need more pastors. Okay.
Can we get more pastors?
That's what they're saying.
They still say that, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I actually agree with it. And then I usually tell them a story if I have enough time.
Sure.
It has to do with actually someone who was key to the history of the banner. Andrew Kuyvenhoven, in I think it was 1979 or 1980, came to Trinity Christian College area and had an evening kind of open time with the people of that area, Palesites. I went to school at Trinity Christian College, just recently closed, but he came there, and I still remember he gave kind of an address about the state of the church, and he was a longtime editor of the Banner, for those who need to look him up. And some woman out of the who gathered, it was in a congregation where it was in a worship service, said, how come we don't have better preachers? And she did it with a Dutch brogue, which I'm Dutch in background. I'm not going to try to do that. And he paused, and he was a great person in terms of communication. But one of the things I know that he did is he just twiddled his glasses many times. He had glasses. He'd take them off. I heard once through an elder of the church that he had in Southern Ontario said he came once to the morning service, and he goes like this, I forgot my glasses, and asked if the elder would go to the parsonage next door and get his glasses. As the elder or deacon left to do that, somebody asked, do you really need your glasses? He says, no, except when I want to make a point.
Yeah, there you go.
Lower his glasses. So Andy took off his glasses, and he said he made this point. He says, I don't think we're calling our best into the ministry. He said at that time that there might many of you here who will encourage your sons and now daughters to go into law or medicine or business, but you actually desire to call them into the ministry. Ministry is not easy. And I think one of the things we need to continue to lay before people is what does it mean to go up to anyone that you see as ministry gifts, and not just the 15-year-old, maybe the 35-year-old, and say, have you thought about going into the ministry? I mean, I came to the seminary when I was 31 years old. I had already started a law career, and was 6 years into that, and was about to be named partner in a Palm Beach firm. And I just could not run away from the call of God in my life. So when they say, we need more pastors, to say, well, do you remember maybe in the past where we would pray ministers, preachers, and teachers of the gospel throughout the world. And that was the phrasing I recall. Do we do that enough? Do we desire once again to lower the barriers of finances for people? So can we have more pastors? And what's happening with churches, which is related to the fact that I was a church planner background, and there's a desire for church planning renewal, which I know because I've seen some of the people coming in for these podcasts you've touched on as well. Mm-hmm. And I think those are, where are we getting our leaders? And are they equipped to serve the church in terms of church renewal and church planting are two key areas that I run across.
Now, related to that, Jul, isn't there good news at the seminary about enrollment over the past handful of years? Like, where's the trajectory about enrollment?
Yeah, we would say, and again, COVID was probably an interrupter for some people. Let's be honest about that, as we all should be, that I have seen an uptick. So during my 15 years, and next year will be, Lord willing, my last year as president, 16th year, that we have seen increased avenues of access to the seminary. So during my time, distance education started, including for the MDiv. We're using a program called Empower, which is a competency-based theological education module of how people could, again, live, work, and minister where they are and still get a seminary education. That I think there has been, I would say the increase has been related to the prayers of God's people. Mm-hmm. So some of those things need to occur. An understanding of calling, maybe in a deeper way, and saying, now I know where the Christian Reformed Church is. I want to join that effort. Or they understand even the vision for, again, church planning and church renewal, and say, Lord, are you calling me? Here I am, Lord, send me. So we saw, for example, the last few years, particularly increase of students from Canada because of good works of Sean Bricks, who is our church relations liaison. Also a pool of money that specifically goes to create tuition equity. So you pay a Canadian dollar, we'll treat it as a U.S. dollar with making up the difference through this special fund that we have. And again, grateful for donors, particularly from Canada, who said, we want that. And I think these other avenues, including in MA and clinical mental health counseling, there's a desire, I think, to see ministry in all of its kind of spheres be recognized. So I do have students who come specifically saying, I don't know if I'll be the main preaching pastor at a church, but I feel called to hospital chaplaincy. And for us to honor those callings, because they are callings from God, and say there's still, as my former colleague and friend John Whitfleet would say, even if you're a chaplain in a nursing home, you still need to present the gospel. Mm-hmm. It might be done a little different way, but you need to be equipped to bring the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's right.
Jul, you mentioned that you're planning on going into your last year here now. As you think about that, what are some of your hopes, your dreams, your prayers about how you conclude at Calvin Seminary?
Right. So I've been involved at the seminary really even as prior to this as a board member. So for, if I count up even being president-elect, it's over 20 years. Mm. And again, hopeful that the stewardship of this moment. So I look forward to a good handoff to the next person. So part of my really task in the next year is prepare people and prepare the place in even a new way for that. And clean out my office. That might be one. Which if you see my office knows it's a smile, and Derek's already laughing about that. I
better than mine, Jul. Well, I just want to let you know.
We have history, as we know, some of the people we've worked around. I would say that I'd like to make sure that, so we're expanding the PhD program. We're resetting the Doctor of Ministry program. So there's things I feel like, because it was some things that I've started, I just want to make sure that we shore up well. I've been blessed with a team to really see the redevelopment of this campus by a remodeling of this entire facilities and making it more internet friendly, but also I think in terms of bring the sunshine in, how it actually physically feels when you walk onto the campus of Calvin Seminary, even where we're today, a remodeling that led to a podcast room being able to be here. You can imagine 30 years ago, somebody said, well, we want to have you be in a podcast room. They go, what in the world is that? And now here we are. We couldn't really think of ministry right now, especially digital ministry, not to include this opportunity right here. And then across the street for student housing. So we're in some ways a global community of faith. So I'd love to see, as Derek knows, for us to expand that. We do have a strategic plan that talks about reaching even more countries. Could we go from 30 to 35? And then you have to think, what are those 5 extra countries? And what does it mean to support students as they think about coming here in this time where, again, it's very tough for some people to think about immigrating to another place for study. And what is the cost of that? I mean, I mentioned about the par tuition for Canadians, but if you look at some other countries, the inflation rate that those countries suffer through, what does it mean to have support from those countries? So maybe, Derek, to summarize the question, more of the same, but creating space for the next leader.
It's really good.
It is. Yeah, Jul, thank you for giving us some of your time and sharing with us about the seminary and thank you for your years of service here, for all that you've done. And yeah, grateful to be able to talk with you and hear from you, and thankful for the legacy of confessionality at Calvin Theological Seminary. That's not a new thing. It's not 5 years old, 4 years old at the seminary. It's 150 years old. So
150 years and counting, as we say around. You know that because you heard me say. Thanks for what you're doing, and I appreciate this extra opportunity to speak to the people who, once again, not just support the Christian Reformed Church or interested in the CRC, but also Calvin Theological Seminary. Thank you.
That's good. And thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Banner Podcast. We are grateful for your time and for your attention. And if the Lord brings it to mind, if you wouldn't mind saying a prayer for Calvin, for Jul's last year, but for the seminary, that it would keep going with its confessionality another 150 years or till whenever the Lord comes back.